Hi guys, Miss Davis here. I'm back for day 22 of the Anne Frank series. And so I want to jump into where we left off yesterday. Um, we were sort of talking about a lot about Anne's thoughts about Peter and her sort of like crushing and wondering, if he likes her as much as she likes him and, normal everyday teenager thoughts. So I want to pick up on that same vein from yesterday and talking about how Anna's having, there's still going to be thoughts about Peter because that takes over this part of the journal. But there's some other like normal, average, typical teenage thoughts that she's having that have to do with other things too. Some of them I can identify with again in our global coronavirus pandemic. There's a lot of things I can identify with, and then some other things it's just that's part of growing up and feeling like every teenager feels that way. So I am going to skip one journal entry from where we left off. I want to skip to Thursday, the 2nd of March, 1944. Dear Kitty, Margot and I were both up in the attic today. Although we were not able to enjoy it together as I had imagined, still I do know that she shares my feelings over most things. During dishwashing, Ely began telling Mummy and Mrs. Van Daan that she felt very discouraged at times. And what help do you think they gave her? Do you know what Mummy's advice was? She should try to think of all the other people who are in trouble. What's the good of thinking of misery when one is already miserable oneself? I said this too, and was told, you keep out of this sort of conversation. Aren't the grown-ups idiotic and stupid? Just as if Peter, Margot, Ela, and I don't feel all the same about things, and only a mother's love, or that of a very, very good friend, can help us. These mothers here just don't understand us at all. Perhaps Mrs. Van Daan does a little more than Mummy. Oh, I would have liked to have said something to poor Ela, something that I know from experience would have helped her. But Daddy came between us and pushed me aside. Aren't they all stupid? We aren't allowed to have any opinions. People can tell you to keep your mouth shut, but it doesn't stop you from having your own opinion. Even if people are still very young, they shouldn't be prevented from saying what they think. Only great love and devotion can help Ely, Margot, Peter, and me, and none of us gets it. And no one, especially the stupid know-it-alls here, can understand us, because we are much more sensitive and much more advanced in our thoughts than anyone here would ever imagine in their wildest dreams. Mummy is grumbling again at the moment. She's obviously jealous because I talk more to Mrs. Van Daan than to her nowadays. I managed to get a hold of Peter this afternoon, and we talked for at least 3/4 of an hour. Peter had the greatest difficulty in saying anything about himself. It took me a long time to draw him out. He told me how often his parents quarrel over politics, cigarettes, all kinds of things. He was very shy. Then I talked to him about my parents. He defended Daddy, thought he was a first-rate chap. Then we talked about upstairs and downstairs again. He was really rather amazed that we don't always like his parents. Peter, I said, you know I'm always honest, so why shouldn't I tell you that we can see their faults too? And among other things, I also said, I would so like to help you, Peter. Can't I? You're in such an awkward position, and although you don't say anything, it doesn't mean that you don't care. Oh, I would always welcome your help. Perhaps you would do better to go to Daddy. He wouldn't let anything go further. Take it from me. You can easily tell him. Yeah, he's a real pal. You're very fond of him, aren't you? Peter nodded and went on. And he is of you, too. He looked up quickly and blushed. It was really moving to see these few words pleased him. Do you think so? He asked. Yes, I said, you can easily tell by the little things that slip out now and then. Peter is a first-rate chap, too, just like Daddy. Yours, Anne. So this journal entry, two thoughts crossed my mind that I think that teenagers, young people of all generations, ages, times, and places think often about like, oh, the adults just don't understand me. And I think when I was a kid, Will Smith made a song. I'm going to date myself. I'm going to age myself out a little bit. The name of the song was Parents Just Don't Understand. And I loved that song when I was a kid. And I think that that's just such a universal thing. Anna's feeling like, I understand things better than you think I do. I think about things more deeply than you would ever consider. I have something to offer. I have something of value. I have thoughts and opinions. And she's feeling very frustrated because it seems like her her opinions don't matter and her parents don't understand that she's growing up. It's not a little kid anymore. So that's universal. I think every young person goes back and forth. They have their daily struggles with that. And then the second part of this journal entry is very cute because she's again trying to help Peter come out of his shell and to open up to her, and the fact that he likes Anne's dad and Anne's dad likes him back, and that brings him some kind of like smile of pleasure to know that Anne's dad likes him. I think these are all very good signs. And the fact that Anne just wants to help him. So I think a little bit of frustration and a little bit of sweetness. Maybe sweet and sour in this particular journal entry. Next journal entry is Thursday, 2nd of March, 1944. Dear Kitty. Oh, sorry. I went back. I lied. Friday, March 3rd, 1944. Dear Kitty. When I looked into the candle this evening, I felt calm and happy. Oma seems to be in the candle, and it is Oma who shelters and protects me and who always makes me feel happy again. But there is someone else who governs all my moods, and that is Peter. When I went up to get potatoes today and was still standing on the stepladder with the pan, he at once asked, "What have you been doing since lunch?" I went and sat on the steps and we started talking. At 5:15, an hour later, the potatoes, which had been sitting on the floor in the meantime, finally reached their destination. Peter didn't say another word about his parents, and we just talked about books and about the past. The boy had such warmth in his eyes. I believe I'm pretty near to being in love with him. He talked about that this evening. I went into his room after peeling potatoes and said that I felt so hot. You can tell what the temperature is by Margot and me. If it's cold, we are white, and if it's hot, we are red in the face, I said. In love? He asked. Why should I be in love? My answer was rather silly. Why not? He said. And then we had to go to supper. Would he have meant anything by that question? I finally managed to ask him today whether he didn't find my chatter a nuisance. He only said, It's okay, I like it. To what extent this answer was just shyness, I'm not able to judge. Kitty, I'm just like someone in love who can only talk about her darling, and Peter really is a darling. When shall I be able to tell him so? Naturally, only if he thinks I'm a darling too. But I am quite capable of looking after myself, and he knows that very well. And he likes his tranquility, so I have no idea how much he likes me. In any case, we are all getting to know each other quite a bit. I wish we dared to tell each other much more already. Who knows, the time may come sooner than I think. I get an understanding look from him about twice a day. I wink back, and we both feel happy. I certainly seem quite mad to be talking about him being happy, and yet I feel pretty sure that he thinks just the same as I do. Yours, Anne. So once again, universal ideas of, wondering, I think, innocent flirtations and uncertainty about whether or not someone that you likes you as much as you like them. And I think it's all terribly sweet and cute. And it gets me to thinking that, sometimes in today's culture, young people think they gotta go so fast. They think that, relationships are just like instant, like instant oatmeal. You pour the water on it and 5 minutes later it's good to go. And we forget that it's in order to have like a good relationship, there's a lot of getting to know somebody that is supposed to come first. Like these guys, they don't touch, they don't kiss. There's none of that stuff. It's just they're getting to know one another, and they're talking, and they're learning to read each other by looks. And I think that that's something that might be a little bit lost in translation today. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not a young person anymore, so Lord knows I'm not a young person anymore. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I'm wondering if the slow pace of Anna Peters' relationship doesn't strike you as terribly sweet, because it does me. Anyway, next journal entry, Saturday, March 4th, 1944. Dear Kitty, this is the first Saturday for months and months that hasn't been boring, dreary, and dull, and Peter is the cause. This morning I went to the attic to hang up my apron when Daddy asked whether I'd like to stay and talk some French. I agreed. First we talked French, and I explained something to Peter. Then we did some English. Daddy read out loud to us from Dickens, and I was in the seventh heaven because I sat on Daddy's chair, so very close to Peter. I went downstairs at 11 o'clock, and when I came upstairs again at 11:30, he was already waiting for me on the stairs. We talked until 1:45. If, as I leave the room, he gets a chance after a meal, for instance, and if no one can hear, he says, "Goodbye, Anne. See you soon." Oh, I'm so pleased. I wonder if he's going to fall in love with me after all. Anyway, he is a very nice fellow, and no one knows what lovely talks I have with him. Mrs. Van Daan quite approves when I go and talk to him. But she asked today, teasingly, "Can I really trust you two up there together?" "Of course," I protested. "Really, you quite insult me." From morn till night I look forward to seeing Peter. Yours, Anne. He's going to keep moving right on. Monday, the 6th of March, 1944. Dear Kitty, I can tell by Peter's face that he thinks just as much as I do. And when Mrs. Van Daan yesterday evening said scoffingly, "The thinker," I was irritated. Peter flushed and looked very embarrassed, and I was about to explode. Why can't these people keep their mouths shut? You can't imagine how horrible it is to stand by and see how lonely he is, and yet not be able to do anything. I can so well imagine, just as if I were in his place, how desperate he must feel sometimes in quarrels and in love. Poor Peter. He needs love very much. When he said he didn't need any friends, how harsh the words sounded to my ears. Oh, how mistaken he is. I don't believe he meant it a bit. He clings to solitude, to his affected indifference and his grown-up ways, but it's just an act, so as never, never to show his real feelings. Poor Peter, how long will he be able to go on playing this role? Surely a terrible outburst must follow as a result of his superhuman effort. Oh, Peter, if only I could help you. If only you would let me. Together we could drive away your loneliness and mine. I think a lot, but I don't say much. I'm happy if I see him and if the sun shines when I'm with him. I was very excited yesterday while I was washing my hair. I knew that he was sitting in the room next to ours. I couldn't do anything about it. The more quiet and serious I feel inside, the more noisy I become outwardly. Who will be the first to discover and break through this armor? I'm glad after all that the Van Daans have a son and not a daughter. My conquest could never have been so difficult, so beautiful, so good if it had not happened to hit on someone of the opposite sex. Yours, Anne. P.S. You know I'm always honest with you, so I must tell you that I actually live from one meeting to the next. I keep hoping to discover that he, too, is waiting for me all the time, and I'm thrilled if I notice a small, shy advance from his side. I believe he'd like to say a lot, just like I would. Little does he know that it's his clumsiness that attracts me. Yours, Anne. This is adorable. I'm sorry. I know I'm an old lady, but this is just the cutest thing ever. And she's just, you know, hanging on his every word and every little encounter that they have and things of, being exchanged in glances and looks and things like that. It's just adorable. It's adorable. So, Anne is really kind of like infatuated with young Peter, and I think she's really trying to help him get over his shyness and trying to help him find his real self and to, I think she's always wondering, like, what are his true feelings? Because I can't tell. He hides them away and keeps to himself so much. I think that it's a really interesting quandary that she finds herself in, so close to someone physically and yet so far away in terms of like emotional connection, that she feels a distance there when they're like kind of like living right on top of each other. So I don't know. it's it's sweet, and it makes me feel happy on these long, it's cold where I live, cold days of a coronavirus quarantine. It's nice to see that little has changed about falling in love and how much love can occupy your thoughts and your time and your feelings and make the days seem full when you have someone to love and to think about loving. So those are my thoughts for what they're worth today. I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Have a great night. Bye bye.